Hello, my name is Tuariki Delamere. I am the former Minister of Immigration for New Zealand. I am currently Principal Consultant for TDA Immigration. Today, I'm going to talk about the one-off 2021 resident visa. This is the first of 4 videos where I provide a detailed analysis of the actual immigration instructions that you will need to follow in order to submit your applications for your resident visa. This first video will cover an overview of the policy and the character and medical requirements. So starting with the overview. So the policy has several objectives. I won't dwell too much into that. You can check those yourselves at section 6.1, A, B, and C. Mainly those objectives are to enable people in New Zealand to gain residency. So the migrant workforce will be secured for the employers. But moving to the opening and closing dates, okay, let's have a look at that. As most of you already know, there are 2 phases. Phase 1 opens on the 1st of December 2021. And phase 2, for those applicants who are in phase 2, applications will be accepted from the 1st of March 2022. This category has an end date, okay, 31 July 2022 for all applicants. That's the last day. Any application submitted after that, from 1 August onwards, will be automatically declined and rejected. So you must make sure you get it submitted. And all applications must be made using the approved online form provided by Immigration New Zealand. If you submit a paper-based form, your application will not be accepted unless, and this is the catch, unless the application is from dependent children aged 25 years or older, and they must be made on a paper form. If they go online, they will be declined. So those are the opening and closing dates. Okay, let's look at the phase 1 and phase 2 applicants. So starting off with phase 1. Phase 1 are those people who, on the 29th of September 2021, had made an application for residence under the skilled migrant category or a residence from work category, and that application is still processing. Or you had an expression of interest in the pool for skilled migrant category on that date, which included a dependent child aged 17 years or older as at 29 September 2021. Okay, if you have an EOI and you do not have a dependent child who's 17 or older, don't apply for phase 1. Don't try and be clever and think you can sneak it through. It will not be accepted. It will be declined and rejected. Now, phase 2 are all other applicants who meet the qualifying criteria. Now, applications for the 2021 resident visa between 1 December and 28 February must include the residence application number or the EOI reference. Okay, so you must tell them your reference number. If you do not tell Immigration New Zealand the reference number, even though they have the ability to look it up, you will almost certainly be declined. So follow the instructions. And to be just to confirm it, if you are a phase 2 applicant and you put in your application before 1 March 2022, it must be declined. Now, this is a very dangerous thing for some of you. You know, don't try and be clever, because see, let's say you put it in on the 28th of February thinking you're going to sneak ahead of everybody. You won't sneak ahead. It will be declined. But your problem is you don't know when they're going to decline it. You know, if they decline it in the last week of July, 2022, you're going to be in real big trouble because you're almost certainly going to miss the deadline on the 31st. So don't try and be clever and think you can sneak ahead of everybody else. And this just confirms all applicants included in the skilled migrant category or residents from work application or expression of interest may qualify as a phase 1 applicant. If you're not one of those, you definitely do not qualify as phase 1. So that's phase 1 and phase 2. Moving on. Now, providing evidence. This is very important. If you do not provide the evidence that's requested, you will be declined. Okay, so the applicants must provide, let's have a look. They must meet health and character requirements. So you've got to ensure that you provided the evidence that you meet health and character requirements, and that you also meet the qualifying criteria for this visa application. And the application must be declined if the immigration officer is not satisfied that you have provided sufficient evidence. So it's very important. You must provide evidence. I'm not going to come back and ask you to provide evidence this time. You know, in normal other applications, they may come back and ask you for further documents. Part of this category is speed in getting things processed. If you don't put in the evidence, then you will be declined. So you need to be very careful on this. Okay, so let's look at character. Character checks must be carried out for everyone who's age 17 and over and applying for residence class visas. That's for every residence category. So if this is the first time that you have applied for a residence class visa, you have to provide Immigration New Zealand with a police certificate from your country of citizenship and from any other country in which you've lived for 12 months or more. Okay, so be careful on this. If you've provided these certificates with a work visa application, you will need to get new certificates. This only applies, you don't have to get them if you've already provided them for a residence class visa. So a lot of people think they've already provided certificates. According to this, you would need new certificates if you haven't provided them for a residence class visa before. And it doesn't mention any, dates of, validity, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. So if in doubt, provide it, okay? You won't be punished for providing too much evidence, but you will be punished severely because you will be declined if you don't provide the evidence they need. So if you're in doubt, my recommendation is right now, you start contacting every country that you need, your home country, of course. And if you've lived in other countries for 12 months or more in the last 10 years, start applying for those police certificates now. I mean, countries like, China, Australia, they're very quick. But hey, if you've been living in the US or you're a US citizen, those police certificates can take forever. The FBI are not the fastest people in the world for providing it. So start doing that now. Okay, so for the New Zealand police check, you don't have to worry about that. Immigration New Zealand will do that themselves. And if you're not required to provide a police certificate because you've already provided one before for a residence application, then you're fine. However, despite that, in A5.5H there, an officer, whether you like it or not, they can ask you to provide a police or a similar certificate if they decide it's necessary. And if they do, then you have no choice but to provide it. Okay, you must provide it. Now, this is very important. The impact of Criminal Records Clean Slate Act, 2004. the clean slate scheme. Let's have a look at that. The immigration officer must be aware that New Zealand convictions may be covered by this Act. And if so, an eligible individual is not required to declare New Zealand convictions. Now, that doesn't just apply to New Zealand citizens, it applies to any foreigner in New Zealand. So if the conviction you have comes under the Clean Slate Act, you do not need to declare it. Okay, but you need to be careful and find out. And the reason for that is, let's move on, is because an immigration officer is not allowed under law to require you to tell them that you have a criminal record if those convictions you have are subject to the clean slate scheme, okay? In fact, any immigration officer that demands you tell them is committing a criminal offense. Okay, so that's what that says there. But what I've highlighted here is very important, okay? If, however, you voluntarily tell an officer, I had a couple of convictions for this, but I'm under the Clean Slate Act, the information can be used against you if you voluntarily gave that information to the officer, okay? So be very careful, don't try and be clever, just don't mention it. If your convictions are subject to the Clean Slate scheme, you do not have to declare them. However, you also need to be careful that you don't kid yourself and not disclose other convictions that may not be subject to the Clean Slate scheme, because Immigration New Zealand will find it. Remember, they get your police record. So your convictions may well be on the police record, but if they're subject to the Clean Slate scheme, the immigration officer is prohibited by law from asking you about it, okay? But if those convictions are not covered, you must declare them, because if you don't declare them, you're likely to decline your application for residence, okay? So if you're not sure, make sure you get proper advice as to what can be declared and what doesn't have to be declared. Okay, moving on to health. If the officer is not satisfied that you don't meet the health requirements, they must refer the matter for assessment to a medical assessor. Now, however, in saying that, where you are the partner or dependent child of a New Zealand citizen or person holding a residence class visa, you're not required for that. Or where the applicant is applying for a 2021 residence visa, unless the provisions of A460 A and B apply. We'll cover that in a minute. So again, if you're not sure whether you need to do this or not, I suggest go and get the limited medical certificate, as we show here. But again, if you've already applied for residence before, remember, this is only for a residence application before. So again, be careful, check. If you need to do it, you must submit it. You won't be punished if you put one in and you didn't actually need to, but you will be punished if you didn't put it in and you need to. So I won't go into great detail on medical waivers, but these following conditions like dialysis, hemophilia, intellectual cognitive incapacity, tuberculosis, infectious respiratory diseases, usually means you don't meet the standard of health, but you can possibly get a medical waiver. So look, that's a brief synopsis overview of the policy, including the character and medical issues. For the police certificates, if you're not sure, my advice is go get them now. Don't wait till the last minute. and find yourself at risk of being rejected. Okay, look, I hope that's helpful. Videos 2, 3, and 4 will cover specifics of the criteria. That's video 2. Video 3 will cover those who come under what immigration referred to as the skilled stream. And the last video, video 4, will cover those who come under the scarce occupations. So again, I hope this is useful, and yeah, you all take care.